Okay, look, I can already hear you making fun of me. Stop it. It's not nice to make fun of somebody with a condition. I did get enough books in the last month that I need to give you guys an update because the pile on my floor was getting a little out of hand. So let's start out with the books that I was gifted this last month and a half. Okay, so the first books that I want to show you guys, I'm honestly still kind of aghast that this happened and that they're on my shelf. I'm honestly, I don't have words. I don't have words for this one. This was a gift from one of my patrons who surprised me with a set of the Broken Bindings Gentleman Bastards trilogy. I have already thanked this person, but I'm at a loss for words, to be perfectly honest with you. My jaw couldn't have hit the floor faster when I first lifted these out of the box. They are absolutely stunning. As you guys know, Lies of Laclamora is one of my favorite series ever. And these are just, I've already Mylar wrapped them because I was just terrified of them getting damaged. But I want to show you guys how absolutely stunning these books are. Each of them has this almost card style artwork on the naked hardcover. It has the beautiful designed sprayed edges. The end papers of these books are absolutely stunning, and they're different on each end. These are absolutely beautiful, and to the patron who sent them to me, I've already talked to you, but thank you so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for sending me these books. I am still just completely in awe of your generosity with these, and I will treasure them forever. Next up, when I visited my friend Andrew Wizard back in June, I had forgotten to include the books that he gifted me. I basically walked into his house and he was like, "Here, have a pile of books," which was very nice of him, and I need to include those in my book haul because I'm very excited about the pile that I ended up leaving with. The first one is another special edition. So Andrew had backed the 1,000 Li First Step Kickstarter by Tao Wong, and he was one of the people who got to see a proof copy of this Kickstarter, and he let me have the Kickstarter proof, which is really, really cool because this is obviously like a basically kind of one-of-a-kind book, because it's going to be slightly different, I think, even than the final product, which is pretty cool. But it has this absolutely stunning naked hardcover. Look how beautiful that is. The foil is actually embossed, I think, so it's raised on the front cover. Gold gilt edges, absolutely beautiful. These gorgeous illustrations on the inside. And the dust jacket is actually reversible, which is just really, really cool. So that was gorgeous. Thank you, Andrew, for giving me that. It's beautiful. I have not read The First Step yet, but I would really like to because I've heard really good things about it, and I think it's a cultivation fantasy. Correct me if I'm wrong. The next one he sent me home with was my very own copy of Mushroom Blues by Adrian Gibson. This is an indie novel that came out recently that I have been really excited to try. And I love this cover. It's got a very cool kind of crime noir, very bright. I love bright, vibrant covers, and this one really caught my eye when it first came out. So I'm super excited to read that one. And then he had a classic that he sent me home with, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I know absolutely nothing about this, but I've heard really good things about it, and I am honestly excited to add it to my classic shelf because I'd heard enough about it that I was intrigued. So we'll see what that's about when I get to it. And the last one was he sent me home with this really nice hardcover edition of the Prydain Chronicles, which is something I would like to read through as a possibility of a series I could read with my kids. So yeah, Thank you, Andrew, for sending those all home with me. They are all going to be awesome additions to the shelves, and I appreciate you. Next was a gift from an author, another indie author, who I'm good friends with, and that is Palmer Pickering, who sent me this beautifully wrapped edition of her book Darktown. It's a new release. It's a lit RPG, and she sent me these two beautiful bookmarks with it. And I don't know what's in here, but oh, very cool. She sent me let's see if it'll pick up on the camera. I don't know if it will or not. She sent me this really beautiful wolf pendant. That was super nice. Thank you, Palmer. Love that. And I thought I would unwrap the book itself on camera. I love ribbons and cool paper and wrapped books. It just feels like Christmas whenever you're opening these, and that is super cool. I will say that indie authors packaging has it's amazing for the most part. Like, these guys are really outdoing themselves. So here is my copy of Darktown. I'm really excited to read this. I have read Palmer's book Heliotrope, epic fantasy, found family. I know she has a more sci-fantasy futuristic series as well, but I'm very excited to try Darktown. All right, now we're gonna get into the books that I purchased this last month. And the first thing that I'm gonna show you guys is the first 9 volumes of Spy Family. 9 volumes. So I wasn't really in the market for buying these yet because I just read them. However, there was a listing that came up on Mercari where all of these were 25 bucks. What are you gonna do? Honestly, that was an incredible deal since each of these brand new is like $11, I think. $10, $11. So it was an amazing deal for all 9 of them, and this is definitely a series that I wanted on my shelf. So now I own the first 9 volumes, at least, of Spy Family. Continuing the indie author trend, I also received my new copies of the Meredith's new books, Patricia Meredith's Cozy Murder Mystery, Slings and Sparrows, and Andrew Meredith's Cozy Fantasy, Quaint Creatures. I have read both of these. I was lucky enough to beta for both of them, and the Merediths are coming for cozy. That's all I have to say about that. I don't know that I'm a cozy story lover yet, but if anybody can convert me, it's going to be the Merediths. I also finally purchased my copies, hard copies. I have the ebooks, but I wanted hard copies of Miss Perky. I also purchased my physical copies. I had the ebooks, but I want the physical copies of Quenby Olson's Miss Percy's Pocket Guide. There we go. Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Keeping of British Dragons. Care and Feeding. Dang it. I was so close. And Miss Percy's Travel Guide to Welsh Moors and Feral Dragons, book 1 and 2 of the Miss Percy series. These are beautiful. I have heard amazing things, and I'm just so excited to see how well Quen has done with these. That's really cool. And I really wanted to read the hard copies. All right, the last indie book that I purchased was an obvious one that I've been waiting all year to buy. So this one was going to be in the book haul no matter what. And that is The Sundering Hours by Jacqueline Hagan. This is book 4 of her Riverfall Chronicles. The Wickwire Watch book 1 was a Spiffbo finalist this year, and was my personal favorite of the finalists in the competition. I love this series. Every time I open a new book in it, it feels like coming home with these characters, and I love it so much. And I have heard there are pirates potentially in this version, which makes me very incredibly excited. And I love the purple on the cover. It's going to be a great time, and I cannot wait to carve out some time in my TBR to read it. All right, that is all of the indie that I have. So let's move on to the non-indie. So this was kind of an impulse purchase after I heard somebody quote it online, and I can't even remember where I saw somebody quote it. But this is called Art and Fear by David Bales and Ted Orland. And this is basically just a little nonfiction book about creating art and the fears that come with creating art. And the quotes that I heard from it were really encouraging, and I think that this is going to be a really good book to read, especially as I'm in the process of drafting my next novel. And obviously it's very short, so I picked up a hard copy of it because it sounded really interesting. Next up was an addition to my memoir shelf, and that is Night by, is it Elie Wiesel? I'm not entirely sure how that's pronounced. I hope I'm not horribly butchering it. But this is a Nobel Peace Prize winner, the memoir of a then teenage young man who lived through the Holocaust. And it's a tiny little memoir, but it packs an incredibly powerful punch, as all memoirs of that era do. And I'm really excited to read this. I have a serious soft spot for memoirs written by people who survive really incredibly difficult things. And I really look forward to reading this because I think it's going to be incredibly impactful. Next up, I grabbed a copy of The Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arakawa. This is going on my translated fiction shelf and might be added to my upcoming vlog sometime this year, where I spend a week reading nothing but translated fiction, because I'm really looking forward to that. And this is one that comes highly recommended. I know it's a very famous story, and I honestly don't know what it's about, really, which is fine. I enjoy going into books pretty blind, so I'm not mad about it, but I have heard really good things about this book, and I'm looking forward to it. Next, I had to add to my Janny Wirtz collection with a copy of the omnibus edition of Cycle of Fire. This includes Storm Warden, Keeper of the Keys, and Shadowfane. And what's really cool is an author that I have talked about in my Cosmic Footsteps trek through the year of reading classic female science fiction fantasy books. Andre Norton has a blurb on the back of this book, which is incredibly cool. So yeah, this is the 3-in-1 edition of this book, and I have heard from a lot of people that I would probably really enjoy this. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have no idea what to expect, but knowing Janny, it's going to be a wild ride, and it's going to be a really good one, so I'm excited about that. Next up, I've been adding to my Terry Pratchett collection because I love Terry Pratchett, and none of you should be surprised if you see him on my favorite authors of all time list fairly shortly, because I'm 2.5 books into his Discworld series of The City Watch. And I'm obsessed, you guys. I'm absolutely obsessed with this series. I love it incredibly much, and it is just sad to me that it's taken me this long to get into Discworld. So I got a really good deal on these. I was able to get Small Gods, The Light Fantastic, Pyramids, and Sorcery, and I don't even really know what series these are from. I will look them up before I read them, nobody panic. But I know Small Gods specifically was one that I really wanted to grab because I've heard that it's that a lot of people really, really enjoy this one. And I think it's a standalone. Y'all Pratchett fans, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think this one's a standalone. And then I'm not sure. I know Sorcery and The Light Fantastic are not the book ones of their series. But I'm just kind of slowly grabbing these as I see good deals on them. And pretty much my entire mass market paperback bookshelf is going to be Terry Pratchett pretty soon, and I'm totally fine with that. All right, the next one that I purchased was in the bookshop on Pango Books of one of the booksellers I bought the Terry Pratchett books from, and he had volume 1 of Mouse. This is a graphic novel depicting the horrors of the Holocaust through cats and mice. And I have heard that this is one of the most powerful depictions of the Holocaust ever created, and it's something that I'm looking into as a way to potentially introduce my children to it when they are older, obviously. But yeah, I have heard absolutely amazing reviews of this duology. I think it's just 2 volumes maybe. So yeah, that's another one that's going to be on my list, and kind of in company with, I may read it back to back with the Elie Wiesel memoir, and I think having a memoir from someone who was actually there alongside the graphic novel would be a really good plan. Also, the last bookstore we stopped at on our way home from our trip We found a really good half-price books actually in, I can't remember if it was Cedar Rapids, Iowa, somewhere like that. And I found this absolutely stunning boxed edition, book club edition of White Fang by Jack London. And the paper from the Heritage Club that it was made for is still in here. Stylized artwork in it. And I cannot own too many versions of this book, to be honest. I own quite a few versions of it now, but that was just such a beautiful copy of it with the slipcover and the illustrations on the inside. And I always love when I find copies of White Fang that is just White Fang and it's not lumped together with Call of the Wild. So had to buy that because it was really beautiful. And then probably the most exciting find on that last bookstore trip was I happened to look down at the bottom shelf in this half-price books fantasy section, and I saw this tiny little book, Purple and Black by K.J. Parker. This is one of his novellas. These are incredibly hard to find. This is a Subterranean Press edition, and it's already Mylar wrapped. It is signed, which is amazing, and I have heard really good things about this novella specifically, that maybe it could be one of his better ones or best ones. And this might be a good way to kind of step into his work without having to commit to a bigger novel at the beginning. At that same half-price books, I found a hardcover edition of The Last Full Measure by Jeff Shara. As I've said in a couple of my other book hauls, I've been slowly collecting Jeff Shara novels to build my collection. He is a historical fiction writer who writes about the wars that America was participating in, especially the Civil War. And in The Last Full Measure, something really cool about this book specifically is that my triple great-grandfather, Edward Bassett, who was in the 1st Minnesota, which is a incredibly decorated and highly lauded regiment in the Civil War, is actually mentioned in this book multiple times. So that is really, really cool. And I've been wanting to get the hardcover editions of this trilogy. It goes along with The Killer Angels and Gods and Generals. I also picked up a copy of The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass by Frederick Douglass. This is a book that I read during college and just wanted to pick up and read again because I remembered that it was really, really interesting and really impactful when I read it the first time. And so I picked up a copy of it so I can read it again, and also so that I can incorporate it into my kids' history curriculum as we get a little farther down the road. All right, last but not least, you guys. This may surprise a few people watching, but I've decided that I'm going to try a very famous author coming up here at the end of 2024. And I did a lot of research, and I asked some friends who are more well-read in this author than I am, obviously, and carefully chose 2 books of his to start with, because I just want to see what all the fuss is about, to be perfectly honest with you, and that is Stephen King. I don't know how I'm going to feel about Stephen King. I am not a fan of horror, but I also know that Stephen King doesn't always just write horror, as I've been told multiple times. And the first book that I'm going to be reading by him is Duma Key. I don't know a ton about it, but this is one that was highly recommended to me by a friend who reads a lot of Stephen King, who was of the opinion that this would be a really good fit for me specifically. I didn't want to do that thing where I just read one of the books that everybody recommends for King, like The Stand or It. I don't think that those are going to be for me. And so I was interested in looking into some books that I thought would be a better fit for my reading taste. And the other one, which was kind of a self-recommendation after I did some research and synopses reading and vlogs and all that kind of stuff, was actually Billy Summers by Stephen King. This one's about a veteran military former military guy who is kind of turning vigilante and goes after only the worst of the worst people, but then that line starts to get blurred or something of that nature. And it just sounded like something that would definitely be kind of in my wheelhouse in terms of things I might like to read. But yeah, so I will be starting one of these books probably in October. And I'm really looking forward to it, actually. I'm excited to see what the fuss is about. I've heard really good things about both of those books. and we'll see what happens. We'll see. If I randomly turn into a Stephen King fan, I would be surprised by that, but you never know. That is the book haul for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please let me know down in the comments which of these books you've read or what you're most excited for me to read. And if you think I made the wrong choice with my Stephen King picks, feel free to put that in the comments as well. But I hope you guys are all having a fantastic week, reading some 5-star reads, and I'll see you in the next video.